You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Well, folks, we survived the solar eclipse. It's the Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Betano, Nick Alberga, and guest co-host Carter Hutton. What's going on, Huts?
I'm doing well, buddy. Big win last night. We survived the solar eclipse. It's a good day to be in Ontario now again. We're safe. We beat the Pens, beat Kyle Dubas, and we beat the Eclipse.
Oh, man, there's so much to unpack from that game. I was waiting for that Dubas ISO shot, and fortunately, Sportsnet hit us up with it when they scored the OT winner on somebody they picked up last year in Jake McCabe, Spezza beside Dubas. A tough loss for the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're going to dive into that. Did you and your family do anything special to take in the activity yesterday? Man, I thought it was really cool. I was actually at the gym when it took place, and I'm like, it's getting really, really dark. It had an ominous feel. Everybody at the gym was at the windows, looking at what was happening. And I was just a mindful person. I was like, well, I have my pick of the litter when it comes to machines. So I was fortunate in that respect, but it was kind of really cool for that 10 minutes it happened, the total solar eclipse.
I'd be lying if anything cool happened here, buddy. It was a cloudy, rainy day here in Thunder Bay. But the only bad part was our kids were home from school. So I had the kids, the dog, everybody. It's raining out. So there wasn't much fun going on in the Hutton house when it came to the solar eclipse. So we watched it. But my little guy wanted the glasses and everything. And when the time hit, we pretended to look at it, but we were just staring off into rain clouds.
They wouldn't know any different, right? I thought it was so 2024 that was all the rage were these glasses. Were they being given out for free, or do you have to pay for those things?
We got them just through a friend, so they were free. So I don't know if they were being given out at different places. I'm sure a lot of people made money on them. I can guarantee you that, because if there's anything that people like to do, if stuff like this happens, there's a way to make money.
Huts, the only thing I saw looking at these glasses, it's like somebody rated a Cineplex Odeon. I don't even know if it's called that anymore, but somebody rated a local movie theater and grabbed all these glasses from the IMAX and said, hey, you can look at the solar eclipse with these things. They were so goofy, man. It was ridiculous to me.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things, but it is cool, right? The whole fact of what happened. And I think it kind of brings people together. Obviously, it's a cool phenomenon that happened. I remember it happening as a kid, and there was less hype, though, for sure. But maybe because we didn't have the internet, obviously, and we didn't have this stuff. I'm 38 now, so I don't know the last time it happened, but I think it comes every 30 years or something like that, I had heard. But I just think they said, don't look up at the sun. And our kids got sent home from school. This was a big ordeal, and everyone around the world. So it was cool. But again, the glass is a bit of a gimmick, I think. Just someone trying to make some money on it.
Such a gimmick. It was WrestleMania this past weekend, so maybe that was part of the conversation. But I can't believe it happens every 30 years if you intend it is that way, because I feel like it just happened yesterday. But nevertheless, it was a really cool different occurrence, and just the level of sunglasses, everybody going outside. It really had that end of the world feel, but I'm like, no, you can't end now because the Leafs are so close to the Stanley Cup playoffs again.
Yeah, seriously, and they're playing well. This is a good hockey team. We've had our doubts, we've had our ride ups and downs, but they're playing, and especially last night too. For me, it's like you're playing against a desperate hockey team that's been playing playoff hockey for a while. So for them to go out and answer the bell, that was an impressive win for me, Nicky, last night. And obviously we got lots to go over, but I'm feeling good right now about this Leafs hockey team.
I'm feeling good about the chat. They've been really, really locked in as of late. Peter Lou writes in, total solar eclipse every 100 years. Partial eclipse happens more often. Okay, so there's our answer right there. We don't need to speculate anymore, I guess.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's what happened when I was a kid, a partial eclipse there. Sorry, Peter. I got to do a little more research before I get on. I'm just a hockey guy, okay? I get hit with pucks for a living, so you can't expect me to know too much.
Well, a lot of people in the chat suggest maybe you're a geography major, given your background here in the show. That's again, you're in your kid's room, so you're really bringing it here on Leafs Morning Take. The playoffs are near, as you know, Huts, and we are ready to bleed blue. Nation Gear is ready to gear you up for Toronto's playoff run. Rep your favorite team as they battle for the cup. Shop the exclusive Bleed Blue playoff tee and more at nationgear.ca. As you see on your screen right there, you can get it right now and be ready to go for game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I can't believe it. 11 days away, happening on 420. How many 420 jokes are there going to be? A lot, I think.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of them, too. I feel like the 420 jokes wore down now that weed's legal, too, though. I feel like when I was a kid, it was way more, but now it's just it's just weed, right? It's not a big deal anymore. That ship has sailed.
Yeah, it just shows you how not hip I am anymore. Where I'll bust out like the 420 joke to a Gen Z, like work with a lot of Gen Zs in this in this line of work, obviously in broadcasting and doing my stuff with the NHL. I'll bust out that joke. They'll have no clue what I'm talking about. It won't be funny. But back in the
That's
day, dude, it was hilarious. Like, ha ha ha, 420, right? When you say it, it's like nobody gives a shit anymore. Every day's 420.
Yeah, things have changed too. Even if, just I feel like I'm the same way, man. I make dad jokes way too much now. It's just in my blood now. You become a dad, you get old, and all of a sudden your jokes just get horrible, but you think they're funny. That's all that matters.
I'm not even close to being a dad, but I still have just an artillery full of dad jokes. And one day when I do become a dad, I'll just be ready for that. I'm also ready for the Leafs Nation After Dark. Zach did a fantastic job last night recapping the 3-2 OT win against the Pittsburgh Penguins. He'll do it all over. He's going to run it back tonight as the Leafs visit the New Jersey Devils, the third or second of 3 meetings in 16 days to finish off the regular season series with the New Jersey Devils. This game doesn't mean much in the standings for the Devils. They're finished pretty much. The Leafs, I think, pretty much etched in stone. They're going to take on the Florida Panthers. But can you peel back the curtain what it's like for a player this time of year with the Stanley Cup playoffs around the corner, and even for somebody who is getting ready for the summer, unfortunately?
It goes both ways, right? I think if you're gearing up for the playoffs and you are a star player, you're a regular, you're trying to be healthy, you're trying to find little things, you get in your gear ready. There's a lot of moving parts that go into the playoffs, I think, mentally preparing, because it cranks up to another level. And then if you are a player on the outside, say you look at some teams that aren't going to get in and you're playing for a job, you're always playing for pride. There's always different, but it's a different sort of pressure too at times, right? You look at that Pittsburgh team, a Jersey team they're going to face there as well. These guys are desperate for points. They're trying to play their best. There's a lot of pressure on them. But then you look at teams like Chicago, San Jose, Columbus, these teams that are out, guys are playing, they're auditioning. And sometimes it's not necessarily for the team you're on. You could be on an expiring contract. So there's a lot to wager whether you're going into the playoffs or not going into playoffs. But I think for the Leafs, I would say the main goal here is to be buzzing on all cylinders. Everyone talks about rest, and they get enough rest. It's this time of year. They're going to be managing. It's playing the right way at the right time. And maybe, you give a guy a little bit less minutes when the game's going that way. But for me, it's setting things up, setting the table to come in rolling to the playoffs. I believe, in my experience and good teams I've been on, that's always the key to success.
So far, so good with this team. I believe they're 8-1-1 in the last 10 games. Mitch Marner's back and healthy. I thought he was fantastic against the Pittsburgh Penguins on Monday night. Still no word on Calle Yarncroke and those likes. And Joel Edmondson might play on Thursday against the Devils on home ice at Scotiabank Arena and Liljegren. Like, there's still some question marks when it comes to injuries. But as you mentioned, health, a big concern this time. You're getting the team healthy, but getting the team playing really, really well. And so far, I mean, the team has been getting the results, and for the most part, they've been playing some excellent hockey. So looking forward to the next couple of weeks as we get closer and closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs. I also have a big guest on today's show. Your buddy Darren Pang is going to drop by in about 20 minutes from now.
Yeah, honestly, one of the best guys I've ever been around. Was good to me in my years in St. Louis, and I knew him before that, especially being a goalie. He's a guy that is just great for the game of hockey, in my opinion. I think when you're doing color and you're an analyst and you're involved in hockey, there's like two ways to see the game. You could see it as like, you could see the negative in every play too, right? There's always going to be a mistake. There's always going to be someone that messed up, but I think Panger does a great job of, spinning it in a positive light. I think he does you listen to him, he cares about the games, he cares about the players. So he's a guy that's been great to me and my family. So obviously I'm glad we got him on here. He'll be buzzing because that guy comes with full tilt batteries. There's no days off for Darren Pang.
Always buzzing, man. That's the best thing about Panger. He's always smiling. He's always having fun. It just always seems like he's having the best time of his life, any broadcast he does. So looking forward to that. And how about that? I mean, leaves St. Louis after all those years, goes to Chicago. I wonder why he went to Chicago. How about Connor Bedard, man? Like, that must be a thrilling thing for Darren Pang. And we're going to talk to him about that, to be able to cover Connor Bedard in year one and presumably down the road too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And again, there's not a better guy to do it, to cover a team that, is having a rough go. Like, one of the biggest things I noticed playing in Buffalo, which I found tough at times, like, I like Rob Ray, respected what he did, but he can be a negative guy. He can be hard-nosed, and that's fair. This is the cross you bear being a professional athlete. But when you don't have a good team and you have a guy that fans, people rely on to hear their information from and take it, as it comes. So I think for Darren Pang with the Blackhawks, with the team that's struggling, and Bedard. He's like the perfect fit. He used to play for the Hawks. That was where he played his NHL career. So it makes sense. I'm sure there's a lot of moving parts in this guy's life because there's not a time. I don't think there's a day in the NHL you don't turn a game on and Darren Pang's not there. Whether it's the
I
Hawks
know the
game
guy's
or
just
it's nuts. He just travels everywhere. I don't know. I feel like he's got a little secret tunnels to get around there, a little Panger.
guys everywhere. So Darren Pang's coming up in about 20 minutes. We're obviously going to talk majority Maple Leafs, but maybe sneak in a couple questions about Connor Bedard and can almost maybe correlate him to Auston Matthews, what he's putting together. Just a surreal season. We'll get to that in mere moments at the Leafs Nation 401. If you could subscribe here on YouTube, hit that like button as well. If you're watching right now and are not a subscriber, not sure exactly what you're doing, so hit that subscribe button at the Leafs Nation 401. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. That would be fantastic. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off, up to $10 in value and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more. When you download the DoorDash app, enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25. All in uppercase, 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Offer valid in Canada. Subject to change. Terms apply. So starting that game last night, I saw one very desperate hockey club, and it was not the Toronto Maple Leafs, who I don't know if they went out on industry night on Sunday in Toronto, but Pittsburgh was ready to play, but that's pretty much as I expected in that game.
Yeah, you kind of know they're going to come out buzzing. I think for Leafs, it's like you're trying to catch a moving train, especially playing in Montreal against a weaker team. You kind of mop the floor with them. And all of a sudden it's Saturday night in Montreal. It's a big game, right? It's hockey night in Canada. You get pumped up for those games. I think if you've ever been around hockey in general, those Saturday night big Canadian matchups, it takes a little more out of you. Things get, Reeves with a big fight, like just a great game. And then all of a sudden it's Sunday, and then you got to kind of get going again. A lot of times it's like the Tuesday start, which I feel like sometimes can trap you in. And I think it's a quick turnaround Monday for these guys. And it's kind of a pattern in the NHL. I feel like as I'm removed from the game, I sit back and I look at times where there are a bit of trap games. And those are tough games to wake up for, right? Especially a team is on the road. They're coming in there. They're in hockey mode. You kind of decompress a little bit, coming home, getting the day off. So for me, it's a great sign for them to be able to answer the call after a weak start. That's signs of a good hockey team, a team that can answer the call here. So I loved it, but obviously not the start they're looking for against a team desperate to try to make the playoffs.
Man, I was laughing. How horny was Michael Bunting to start that game? That was the most predictable thing ever. He scored against the Leafs when he returned with Carolina earlier this season, or against the Leafs when he returned with Carolina earlier this season. I played the shot prop last night at plus money over 2.5. He hit it in the first 10 minutes of the game. I think Michael Bunting finished with like 6 shots on goal. He was so horny. It wasn't the solar eclipse he was after either.
No, he was going there yesterday. And you kind of know what's coming, right? I feel like you got me on that path of like, I feel like you always would touch on it. If everyone comes back to Toronto, it's like they're going to score, they're going to play well, they're going to get a break. And we've seen it a lot this year already. And for me, he has just been great for this team. I think he's done a good job of where he slots on that lineup. I think he is a little bit of rat, obviously a disturber, but he's a lot of fluff too, right? Like, he's not, you've seen it in Toronto. He's not going to drop the gloves. He's going to just do what he does. And he's been a good fit. And obviously Dubas loves his boys. So I think he played well. It's funny seeing him on the other side now. You see his act and you see the stuff he does, but it's a little bit different seeing him in a Penguins jersey doing it.
And it's hilarious. Like, he draws the first penalty of the game, and that was my big story from last night's game. It's almost like the result didn't matter. It was weird. Like, I'm in like Auston Matthews mode right now, where I just want to see this guy score goals. And I know the Leafs are in the playoffs. I don't care who they're going to play. They seem pretty secure in that 3 spot to take on the Florida Panthers in that 2-3 matchup in the Atlantic. And I'm zoning on Matthews, but again, I've never been like Mr. rag on the officials guy, but like, it just seems like every game the Leafs are scratching and clawing just to get one power play. And you watched the game last night, and maybe the analytics and the numbers were thoroughly in favor of Pittsburgh, but it's funny how it works out. The Leafs still win that game in OT and had the lead for the majority of the night. And maybe Samsonov was the story, but I just felt like the officials were sort of like leaning on Pittsburgh a bit, man. 5 power plays. The PK was a story for the Maple Leafs. It felt like Crosby was bullying the refs all night. How did you see it?
Very similar. And I'm not this way. Usually I would call you a homer and give you a hard time that you're just siding with the Leafs. But last night was one of those games where it felt like they were trying to will Crosby into the playoffs.
I know.
Giving him so many chances. And And I've always felt this way, like when I played, I was always like polite to the refs, got along with them, buddy, because I just wanted to call in my favor. But there definitely is a superstar treatment. I saw it firsthand when I played on the Blackhawks with Kane and Taves. They used to complain about everything. They would get calls. And then I played on other teams where we didn't have the superstars. And you could feel a difference in games when superstars would lean on these guys, right? And I know it's an equal league and we all get treated the same, but it's not. They're superstars and it's the way it goes. And last night definitely felt like that. A few of the plays. But for me, I guess I am biased a bit because I want Crosby to get in too as well. Like I want the Leafs to win, but I also would love to see Crosby get in, what he's done for the game. And last night, there was a few times where it was just constantly all over him. And you start to get sick of it. Just like I feel like the camera showed him so much complaining to the refs. It gets a bit old. And I feel like it swayed the game for sure. And it worries me heading into playoffs. You don't want the reffing to be like that by any means.
No, I don't want to see power play after power play in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And even in that span of the last 5 minutes, I think it was the second period, there were 3 whistles that were blown in favor of Sidney Crosby. The first is because he knocked the net off with Jake McCabe. Then they called a penalty that was overturned. That was a bizarre one where there was a Bob McMahon high stick, but he hit the puck first instead of the face. Like, is that not still a high stick? Like, what are the chances that happens? So the puck goes into Crosby's face and like the complete like bat job by McMahon, but he hits the puck first, so they overturn the call. I've never seen that before. That's still a high stick in my world, I think.
Yeah, I feel like it should be a high stick, but granted, by the rule, by the letter of the law,
It's
the
so
puck
dumb.
actually hits him. The stick, but it's like the puck is wedged against his face and his stick is there. Like that seems like a high stick to me. It's different if he hit the puck and there was like a gap of a few feet and then the puck hits him or something. But yeah, that was a tough one. But I do respect the refs for calling the 4 minutes so they can review it and get it right. The one for me that was a tough one was when Auston Matthews and him collided. Like, it reminds me of my kids. Like if my son like runs my daughter over and she's hurt, he like pretends that he's hurt because he hit her. Where I thought Auston Matthews kind of knew what he was doing. He leaned into it and like they talked about it last night. And as you watch it, it looks like he looks over, then he lies down. But like the whistle calling, like they're both okay. Why are we blowing the whistle? Let's keep the game moving. Like if that is a different player on the Pittsburgh Penguins, I don't think that call gets made by any means. So I feel like it goes that way, but I also respect the fact of what Crosby's done for the game. But last night was a wild one. And I'm glad he didn't break his leg going into the post there because that gave me Stamkos vibes from back in the day.
It did, and it was just baffling and maybe coincidental at its finest that it just in the span of 5 minutes, there were 3 whistles blown down in favor of Sidney Crosby. You talk about the collision there with Auston Matthews, but it's funny you said that off the top because that was my feel too. It's almost like the NHL. Like, if you're the National Hockey League, would you prefer a playoffs with Crosby or without? I think we all know the answer to that. And just watching that game, A, you just knew that Pittsburgh was going to score that goal. And B, like it had an eerie feeling and feel to it that it did that game last year. If you do recall, against the Florida Panthers, Toronto was up, I think 2-1. They tie the game, then they win it in OT. I think that was the Keith Tkachuk game where he called out the Panthers team in the media, and then they go on a crazy run. A lot of similarities. I think maybe I'm trying too hard at this, but like even Alex Nedeljkovic is the number 1 goaltender, similar to Alex Lyon last year. Maybe it's a stretch and maybe Pittsburgh doesn't get in, but like you circle that game because it was 2-1 Maple Leafs and Pittsburgh finds a way and they get power play after power play after power play. Like it was an absolute joke. And then like the Leafs, again, it's been the same story with this team for like the last decade. Can't draw a call for their lives, man. It's nuts to me.
Yeah, it is. It is tough, right? And then what I struggle with is when the reffing sways in the sense of all of a sudden the regular season's wide open and it's everyone's playing and we promote skill and we want goals, we want offense. And then the playoffs start and it's like there's no time and space. And everyone's getting hooked. Like all of a sudden everything is legal. One year that really had me going was when the year the Leafs lost to Montreal. I felt like Auston Matthews couldn't take a stride without someone sticking him or hooking him or slashing him. And it's like, well, now we have these rules implemented to create a game, that a brand of hockey that people want to watch, people enjoy. And then all of a sudden, like, when we get to the playoffs, well, that's playoff hockey. That's playoff hockey. That's everyone's term for it. It's rougher. It's tougher. Well, no, it's just dirtier and there's more space, no time. So I feel like it's a fine line to walk. And last night felt like one of those games where the refs kind of had an impact on his game. And I feel like over my career, whenever a ref makes a bad call early or a makeup call, I feel like the game is pooched. Because then you can't go back to just letting them play because you've set the standard early. So I felt like last night was one of those cases where a few bad calls early changed the whole game. And then from there, it just slipped out of control.
Oh, and then you see like game management. Like there's a couple instances late in that game where it was like a blatant trip and the official looked away. What the hell was that at the end of regulation, by the way? Like the ref like blatantly looked away. Like there was a clear like hold or a trip on Bertuzzi and like he looked away. It's like they're killing the integrity of the game, man. I never been this guy again. I preface by saying I think it's a difficult job to do, but watching these Leafs games this year, A, it's taken 5 years off my life, and B, it's like, wow, these guys got gypped, man. Like some of the calls, especially last night watching that game, knowing where Pittsburgh's at in the standings, like give me a break.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those ones where if Toronto gets that treatment, everybody's up in arms. Like it's the Leafs. Oh, they're getting the VIP treatment, blah, blah, blah. I can't do that to the Leafs. But when it's on the other end, it's just like, deal with it, right? So I find it frustrating as well. And last night was a great example in my mind of like, it just felt like it had too much control of the game. And I think it kept it a lot tighter than it should have been. But on the plus side, the Leafs played very well, dealt with the power plays. Penalty kill was great. Samsonov was great. Found a way to win in overtime. Obviously, a big win, especially against a desperate hockey team. And that's what you're going to face. That's going to be the kind of playoff hockey you get. So a really good sign for this Toronto team.
I love the unsung heroes. Jake McCabe, a career high 8 goals, 26 points. I believe was his first career game-winning goal. What'd you see there on the OT winner? And I love the snarl and passion this guy plays with. He's involved in scrums every game, which you love to see as a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs and somebody covering this team right now because it just brings a different dimension. And he plays a bit heavy, and he's been chipping in offensively this season too.
Yeah, Jakey's a lovable guy, man. I spent 3 years with him in Buffalo. He obviously dealt with some injuries and came back. This guy, you won't find many guys that are as well-rounded as he is on and off the rink. And he puts in a lot of work to his game. And I think that's a great element of his game. He has that snarl in his game and he can play tough. And last night, again, I hate to just take it away from McCabe. Obviously, he makes a great play. But the play by Auston Matthews, the one-handed pass to just chip it back out. And then the heads-up play by Marner not to change. Like, because the bench could have got confused there. Could have been to too many men. Marner stays on, makes a good play. And then just the path by Matthews across the rink is just a heads-up play. He kind of baits everybody into it. Eller's kind of puck watching. I think he should do a better job of obviously filling that lane. But obviously McCabe does a great job of driving. And you love seeing guys like that score, guys that earn it, right? That's his first career overtime winning goal. Not surprising for me because he's a guy that, doesn't really create a lot of offense, especially in overtime. And obviously, I think the crowd loves that one. The crowd felt like it was buzzing there when that goal went in. So that's something hopefully we can keep building as we get later and closer to playoffs here.
I was going to say for a Monday night game, and I understand Pittsburgh's in town, that crowd was actually invested. Maybe it was like solar eclipse day or something like that, but they were invested. And I think you have to tip your cap because it's few and far between you get those games where the crowd's invigorated. The Stanley Cup playoffs are just around the corner, and it had that Thursday night feel. So that was great to see. Thought Auston Matthews was dancing all night long. A goal and an assist, number 65. Ties Alex Ovechkin's single-season goal record. Needs 5 and 5 to hit 70. And I love this stat. Toronto was 19-3-0 in the past 22 when Auston Matthews scores a goal.
Yeah, not bad numbers at all. And even the goal he got last night, like, like when I first watched it, I was like, what happened there? Like, it seemed such a weak goal. Like it seemed very savable. I think it's because he's on his back foot. Like he's on his back foot, drifting away. Obviously a big face-off win by Tavares. I think it gets sometimes overlooked, like wins it straight back to a guy on his one-timer. And just to be able to get that shot off on your back foot, drifting away is just a world-class play. And he was buzzing. He's playing so well right now. And I love this line combo with him, with Bertuzzi and Domi. I think it's just a good chemistry. I know Marner's going to kind of find his game a bit more. He obviously had a lot of chances last night. It's a little different playing with Tavares than it would be playing with Matthews. But now I think spreading out those three guys, your 3 stars a cop, 3 different lines is just a dynamic. And then another guy, Dewar's played very well as well. I think he's fitting in really great, especially a late addition. A nice job by Tree Living on that move. So this team is looking good, deep, and I don't want to get my hopes up, but Samsonov is playing really, really well right now.
Yeah, on the depth, I was going to make that point too, because I think it's an astute one where the sample size is small, but like I love the look of it. I think it causes chaos, like matchup wise in the Stanley Cup playoffs,
Yes.
whether you're Paul Maurice or anybody else who's got to coach against the Toronto Maple Leafs. It brings a different dynamic. And to your point about the top line, they've got some insane chemistry. And I know you have to put a grain of salt, of any line combination for Sheldon Keefe. Having said that, I mean, we've seen this line go at it for about 3 weeks now. and they look really, really cohesive. There's a lot of chemistry. They're stringing passes. It feels like they have eyes in the back of the head, a la like the Sedin twins. Like there's a lot of chem being built there. And I think it just spreads the lineup that much more when you have the ability to have Nylander on line 3 and Marner back with John Tavares. Like I thought we saw it at Total Eclipse yesterday, where it's like all 3 lines, and then the 4th line, they come at you in waves. It's a much different looking Leafs team when they spread the wealth like that.
Yeah, that was. I just want to touch on that Total Eclipse line. That was actually money, Nick. So
You're welcome.
I agree. Like having that 3 waves that could come at you, and then you start talking about a playoff series. It's like, okay, so how do we match up against this team when you literally have 3 players that can win you a hockey game spread out across 3 lines, and they have some players that complement these guys as well. I also like TJ Brody last night. I thought he had a great game, and obviously they have some interesting decisions to make as guys start to come back. But I also think this is going to be by committee. There's going to be nights where you're going to see guys in the lineup, then you're going to see guys out of the lineup. But I think spreading that out and finding that chemistry, and I love that first line right now. And what we've touched on is Bertuzzi and Domi being brought in this time of year for this kind of play, to play these kind of games. Domi's a guy that can just do it all. He's got good hands in tight. He can make plays. He find Matthews. And Bertuzzi just does a great job of digging out pucks and finding ways to get to the net and create chaos. And then having Matthews, who's pretty much, he's like a world-class goal scorer, obviously, but he's also a Swiss Army knife. He's very good responsibly defensively. He does a great job, and I think getting him away from Marner has helped his game in a sense of just his awareness and finding pockets where I think at times he leans on Marner too much. So I think this has been a great chemistry for this top line, and then from that, it just spreads you out and adds so much more depth. I think it's going to be very tough for teams to try to match these guys.
Yeah, and I think these 3 different lines specifically, including the 4th line, I guess, into the conversation too, they bring just a bit of everything. Like even that top line, just the grit factor of Domi, like he was in Bunting's grill all night, and Bertuzzi. And I think you're so right. We've talked about this ad nauseum throughout the season. Just wait until the springtime. Wait until the springtime. Wait until Domi and Bertuzzi start playing their game, and they are right now. Like I just have been really, really impressed with what they've done the last little while with Auston Matthews. Then the familiarity you already have with Mitch Marner and John Tavares. I think there's the element of playing a cycle game if you want, but then having the speed of Mitch Marner at a couple breakaways last night. So feeling good about that. Feeling good about the PK too. 5 for 5 in that game. We mentioned it was a parade of the penalty box, but Toronto's killed 22 of the last 23 penalties. Great to see, because a couple weeks back we were very, very concerned about the special teams. The power play scored a goal too.
No, and I agree that special team is going to be huge, right? You talk about playoffs, but I'm a big believer, obviously, your goalie is your best penalty killer, right? You hear that all the time, and Samsonov has been so good, and he made a lot of big saves last night, a lot of key saves. And for me, even the goals, like the 2 goals he gave up are tough ones, right? Like it's just shots that get through, find a way. But what I like to see is he's not chasing the game anymore. Like when he's struggling, he is sliding outside the post. He looks just like out of sorts, where right now he is compact, he's in position, he's shifting into pucks, using his size, using his feet. And that's a good sign. Like the Raquel goal is just like kind of a CNI dog, turns around, shoots it through trouble. But it's not like Samsonov is sliding, missing it. And same thing on the who tapped that, O'Connor tapped in the last one. Same idea. It's a shot that ends up having ricocheting, but he's not sliding and not getting out of position, because that's what's worrisome for me, is when he starts giving up rebounds and he's moving. And I think that's a key success of the predictability they have going on with their penalty kill and with the way that Samsonov is playing, and it's showing right now.
It is definitely, and a lot of positives to grab. You talked about Samsonov, 29 saves since the mental reset, 18-4-1, 2.46, and 9.13, and 2 shutouts. Again, it's still amazing to talk about this transformation from a guy who couldn't stop the puck, couldn't stop a beach ball in December, to where he's at now, like the bona fide number 1 for this team, eh?
Oh yeah, for sure, without a doubt, right? There was a time where I was probably one of the harder guys on Samsonov, because I've seen it, right? You can just visually tell when a goalie's struggling. And I've played with goalies that have gone through that. Hell, I've gone through it, right? It's tough to deal with, and I feel for him, and that is the bad side of goaltending. But for him, the way that he has bounced back and solidified his game and his confidence and the mental side of him, even when they interview him now, and I think it's a great thing for hockey and for him, how he, put himself out there, and the fans have taken to it very well. So it's great to see him playing well. And I think as this team, the additions to this team and the predictability of the way they play in the defensive zone is only going to help Samsonov moving into the playoffs.
Talk about rookies. I want to get your perspective before we get to Darren Pang here on Matthew Nyes. Number 15 on the season, 35 points in 75 games. How would you rate his rookie campaign? Because I sort of think he's lost in the shuffle sometimes. Had a very up and down season so far.
Yeah, I think you'd have to start rating him into like a B plus, A minus, right? He's been very solid the way he uses his body. And obviously it's been a big year for a few rookies in this league. And a lot of guys have overshadowed what he's done. And I think he's playing in a lineup where there is some superstars. So sometimes he gets a bit overshadowed. And, just a smart player, he does the right things. He plays the game the right way, especially for a younger guy where I find sometimes the guys that go to college get a little more time to develop and, become men a bit. Like there's more time in the gym where sometimes major junior guys, unless you're a phenom, you're just playing games like the OHL and the Quebec Major Junior Western League. These leagues are just game leagues, right? You're just playing, where when you go to college, there's not as many games. There's more time for you to develop and be in the gym and become a man, because when you get to the NHL, it's a big jump. And I think he's made it very well. And I think it's another great aspect of having players come from the NCAA. For that factor, they can kind of get into the lineup a little quicker.
Looking forward to seeing what he does in the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. If you do recall last year, he was fantastic coming out of college. This interview is brought to you by Douglas, named Canada's best mattress on Canadian living. Douglas is loved by more than 200,000 Canadians, and they're backed by over 10,000 five-star reviews. Every mattress order comes with a free comfort sleep bundle, 2 memory foam pillows with pillow protectors, 1 luxurious cotton sheet set, and 1 mattress protector. Order today at douglas.ca/LMT. That's douglas.ca/LMT. As we bring in today's guest, the one and only, it is Darren Pang. Put on, Panger.
Nick, I'm doing great. Huts, how you doing over there, big guy?
I'm good. Good to see you, Panger. I miss you, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you too. Anytime I think of number 40, I think of just you and me. We're the only 2 number 40s ever.
Yeah, I like that. The only 2 that matter, right?
That's exactly right, Huts. And I'm glad you're doing well, buddy. I'm glad you dove right into it. See, Huts retires from the game of hockey, does a great job, and then gets into the wine business, the restaurant business. But after a while, man, you gotta get grinding and get back to work and the roots of where you came from. Good for you.
Thanks, buddy.
Panger, great to get you on. We were just talking about the Leafs crease, and maybe we can start this conversation there. Of course, getting closer and closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs. How do you feel about Toronto's crease? Obviously, Ilya Samsonov has been a remarkable story so far in the last little while.
Well, it's better than having a whole bunch of questions, I would have to say. And, Huts, you being from Thunder Bay, probably grew up, I'm not sure if you grew up a Leaf fan or not. I grew up in Ottawa where we didn't have an NHL team at the time. So I was an Ottawa 67s fan, but I was a Montreal Canadiens fan. But when I grew up, I always thought of like, as I grew up, the Leafs, there was always something going on. There was always a question mark. There's always pressure. There's always haven't won since 67. And anytime a goaltender's gone in there, whether it be even Freddie Anderson played well there, Campbell played well there for short spurts, but still, it's almost like when I was thinking about the Red Wings when they went through the shovel day off, and they had a whole bunch of goaltenders it just didn't work, and they didn't win, and the pressure was always on the goalie, no matter what happened in front of them, no matter how they played, no matter how they defended. It was always, oh, that's a bad goal. Oh, that's a bad goal, and it was an easy crutch to blame, in my opinion, anyway. I think shore up the D, shore up the system, take care of 5-on-5 D zone coverage, and your goaltenders are going to look a whole lot better. But in saying that, I've watched Samsonov, and I listened to you earlier about that, Huts, as well. Like, it's great that he's going well because, Wall came in last year, and he did play well when Samsonov got injured. I thought last year, and there were many times breaking down the video because I did a couple of series of the Leafs, before he got hurt, I thought there were areas that the other teams were exploiting. And Huts, maybe you can describe this better, but you see the same goalie in a 7-game series. You're seeing the video, you're seeing those clips, you're seeing what's weak. Where do we want to pound? What do we want to do? Do we want to get down low and cycle and wrap jam plays, or can he get beat on the rush? And I thought last year he lost his net an awful lot down low, Huts. I thought, whether or not he's got a technique that I don't know about, going side to side or pushing off, his outside leg ended up a lot outside the post. And that's where the goals that he gave up, they weren't clean plays. They were the ones that were just somehow they bounced off somebody. Somehow they went in the net. And I think that's the area that he maybe has improved on the most, that I haven't seen the same deficiency maybe as I saw last year late in the year.
Yeah, Penger, I couldn't agree more too. I touched on that a lot, just staying within themselves. And something we saw firsthand, I think, struggles when, I had a great season in St. Louis when Jakey had struggled a bit, Jake Allen, and he redefined himself. And he went into that playoffs against Minnesota. I think it might have been the best goalie performance I've ever seen in a playoff after a tough struggle. Yeah. So there is that aspect of the mental side that these goalies deal with. And for me, Panger, to move on from the goalies, obviously I could talk goalies all day here, but this Maple Leafs team has really taken a step forward here. I think they're playing better hockey as of late. And, we're going to, obviously, it looks like you're going to be a Florida matchup, but what do you see in this Leafs team to give fans hope, moving into the playoffs? Because I think, people are scarred by the past by this Maple Leafs team.
Yeah, they are. Last year, I was lucky enough, I got to do that series. And the last time they won a playoff series, Hutch, you'll love this, but in 2004. And Steve Levy and I covered the game nationally on ESPN. So that was game 7. I believe it was Nieuwendyk going down the left side, scored on Patrick Lalime, if I'm not mistaken. And then they hadn't won since last year. So I was astonished, Hutch. I got to tell you, I was like, wait a second. The last series they won, I did it way back when. I almost had hair back then. So what's the difference now besides the pressure of winning? Well, I think last year winning a first round playoff series is big. I think they added, a little bit this year, whether it be Benoit on the back end. I think that has helped them a little bit. I think getting more depth on the third and fourth lines, like last year, they loaded up with Lafferty. When you added Luke Schenn and you added Ryan O'Reilly, you added culture. You added guys that just wanted to talk hockey. They actually, they went out for team dinners before, which from what I understand, that didn't happen a whole lot in the playoffs. So, there was a camaraderie that they had. I think that's going to help them this year. Max is playing real well. Joel Edmondson on the back end. Hutch, you know him real well. That's an element to their game that I didn't think they had as well. Tyler Bertuzzi. His numbers show that when the heat is on, when the playoffs are on, he's greasy enough to get to the front of that and score some goals, almost like Connor Garland last night. Not the biggest guy, but get to the crease and pound some loose pucks in, and that's what he did. That's what he ends up doing real well. And so, I think I'd be hopeful if I'm them. You're getting a guy like Mitch Marner that hasn't played for a while. Now you're getting an added player. I don't know. Ryan Reeves knows his role as well. It's a different team, and I think they've got probably a lot to prove. And it's not just their top guys, but I guess at the end of the day, I'm going to ramble on here, but at the end of the day, if the top guys don't outperform the other top guys, then you probably don't have much of a chance unless your goaltender is the first star every game. But no, I like the Leafs, and I like where they're I kind of like where they're trending right now and how they're playing.
Identity, I think, is a big word to use with this Maple Leafs team, and that's been a big story for me the last little while. That's why they've gone on this run since the whole Ridley Griggs situation, if you want to date it back to that. But It almost feels like they need like that Bobrovsky type run from whoever in between the pipes, whether it's Samsonov, whether it's Wool, whether it's Jones. Like, obviously, goaltending is so big. It really hasn't been a story in this market. It's been the lack of production on the power play and depth scoring and the big boys. But specifically to that matchup against Florida, obviously in the back of their minds is Bobrovsky. Obviously in the back of their minds is that loss last year. But how do you think they stack up this time around to a Florida team?
Well, sure enough, Bobrovsky was real good in that second round. But I think there's more to the game than just that.
Oh no, we lost him. We'll try to get Darren back in mere moments. Darren Pang, our guest here on Leafs Morning Take, just breaking down the goaltending situation. We got you back, Darren? You're muted. You might have to just reset quickly, Darren. We'll get you back here on the screen. But Darren Pang joining us here to break down the goaltending situation. Hutz, maybe you can speak to that. But Bobrovsky and the job he did last year obviously was outstanding.
Yeah, and you could consider something that, Samsonov has dealt with as well, right? Where, Bobrovsky was struggling all year. Like, I think last year you look back on Bobrovsky and everybody was talking about how that contract is a killer for Florida. His contract, he's too old, he can't play anymore, blah, blah, blah. Alex Lyon was the guy. And then all of a sudden it comes to playoff and he's an absolute rock star and he plays it and he's, used that into this year. So something you could almost use right now, I think, for Samsonov is the fact that, like, he struggled and Samsonov was the Achilles heel of this Leafs team. And he does the similar reset. Obviously, it was during the season, a little bit different than what Bobrovsky dealt with, but he was out of the lineup for a long time for Florida. So who knows what he was dealing with, resetting himself for playoffs, and he comes back and he's absolutely lights out. So I think it's something similar you can see with Samsonov, and it's obviously, very visual. Now you can see even the differences in his game. Panger touched on that. Some of his deficiencies you've seen over the time, they don't seem to be there anymore. He seems much more consistent within his post. He's like a lot more crisper in his movements, which for me, which is very reassuring.
Got you back, Panger? We got you back, Panger? Oh no, we can't hear you for some reason, Panger. The audio is not working correctly. So yeah, just off your point when it comes to Bobrovsky, we'll try to figure out the tech issues here with Panger, but just working off Bobrovsky, I think that's the big thing too, is just the goaltending in general, whether it's Samsonov, whether it's Wall. I think you have to have that stability, but you need those marquee goals. We talk about those depth players this time of year too, right, Huts?
Oh yeah, of course. I think everyone knows that too. You look back on different years of Stanley Cup champions, right? Your stars are your stars, right? They obviously have to perform, but every team that can get that third, fourth line, little addition, little get goals that help teams win, you adding that depth scoring is going to be important, especially because this time of year, the stars are going to have the toughest matchups, right? They're not going to have time and space to try to score. So adding those guys in this bottom six of this lineup are going to be huge. I think we got Panger back here. So
yeah, I agree with you.
Got you back there.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but the technical stuff isn't my forte. But sorry, I apologize for that. But it's funny that we could put a microphone inside our gear and play a game and talk all day long, and we have no audio issues, huh? And then we have something in control like this, and it goes belly up. But I think if I go back to ending the last year in that series against Florida. Now I might be completely wrong here, but there was a lot of deep breaths after that first playoff win in a long time. And now you got to get ready for the next one. And I'm not saying that they weren't well prepared or they didn't have the same, let's go, or that same, it was almost like, hey, we won that playoff series, and Florida Panthers, I think they fed off that and they got them into scrums, and they did what they do best. They forechecked hard. They got on them hard, and certainly the goaltender was better. And at that point, but when you lose, that quickly in a series, that's also demoralizing. That should be the motivation for me for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Say one series, that's not the Stanley Cup. You got to win 4 of them to get back to winning the Stanley Cup. And so maybe they're a stronger team that way mentally, Huts, this year in going into it, knowing that last year just wasn't good enough. When they saw what the Florida Panthers did to get to the final and how they romped through Toronto, they romped through Carolina, and they did get, they got pounded obviously in the final. They just didn't have the same giddy up and go, and they were injured a little bit, but it just goes to show you how much more mental fortitude you're going to need to go all 4 rounds.
Yeah, I agree too, Panger. And you called that game, the game the Leafs got eliminated by the Panthers. Me and my old man were at it. We were texting each other, talking about it as it went down. Braden Shen was there watching it. And it's a fun thing for Toronto to be playing well. And another thing that it's hard not to bypass right now is what Auston Matthews is doing. He's got 65 goals. Yep. He's on the verge of getting 70. Do you put him getting to 70 and also, is he someone that if he gets to 70, is he in the Hart conversation? I know he is, but there's obviously been a lot of storylines this year with the Art Ross and with everything going down. How do you feel about Matthews this year, Panger?
It's a great conversation. And I was just in Tampa Bay, Huts, and John Cooper's like, how do you not look at Kucherov, with everything that's going on? Then you go to Edmonton and you've got Connor and obviously I think of one guy right now, if they get in the playoffs, I think a horse from behind is going to bypass them all. If I were a writer, who's the Hart Trophy winner of the NHL if they get into the playoffs? Is it not Sidney Crosby? I know I'm throwing another name right out there, and I wouldn't have, but I can't believe that they're in the race right now. I mean, I can't believe that they put themselves in that spot. And what better player to represent the Hart Trophy than a guy that took a team that was nowhere, all the moves being made. Never thought that the Pittsburgh Penguins were there. Now let's say they don't get in, and it's not Sidney Crosby. Then then jeepers. For me, then that's a real tough one. You get to 70 goals, it's unbelievable. Can there be an Art Ross Trophy winner, a Hart Trophy winner, and a Rocket Richard Trophy winner, and all be different? We haven't had that in a long time, and it's possible. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Gretz won the Hart Trophy in 88-89, his first year in LA, but Mario had more points that year, and it was one of the first times that you didn't see them both end up together on the dance floor at the very end, receiving the awards. So I'm just wondering out there if there might be 2 different winners.
Oh, it's going to be so tough to vote on this because again, I think you can make 5 like strong cases for players. I would throw Crosby into that
Yeah.
conversation. McDavid, the season he's having, Kucherov, McKinnon, Matthews, even Pasternak, Panarin. It's just that type of year. But I wanted to ask you about somebody you're covering on a daily basis. I think this is so awesome and so cool. And it was unfortunate to see you leave St. Louis, but I mean, who wouldn't go in Chicago? What they're putting together right now, obviously with Connor Bedard. Always looking for that next one in hockey. Who could be the next Auston Matthews in terms of goal scoring? Can it be Connor Bedard?
Wow, that's a lot to throw on his shoulders. I mean, he's a different player. He's not as big, doesn't skate the same way, doesn't bump people off the same way. But man, he's got great hockey sense, and he's a better passer than I thought he was when I first saw him in training camp and saw what he had done before. He loves making plays. Probably could shoot it even more than he shoots it, to be quite honest with you. There's many games where I'm like, man, he could have 5 or 6 more shots on goal, but he's not that kind of guy. He doesn't want to be the selfish guy that keeps firing pucks. And so he wants to make a play, wants his line mates to be better as well. I think he's honestly, I hate to say this, he's Connor Bedard. I've been trying to find something with Sidney Crosby. Not really. I've been trying to find something with a Joe Sakic and an Yzerman, and you go down the list. I mean, he's not. I mean, Patrick Kane's a way different player than what he is. So it's different. The shot of Auston Matthews. He's tenacious. Maybe he's more tenacious than I thought he was too. He doesn't mind getting in there and getting involved, and he doesn't mind giving it back as well. He's good that way. But he's not cocky. He's just really respectful of the league. He knows the league. He understands the history, and he also understands he's an ambassador to the game of hockey. And you should see this guy on the road as an 18-year-old. He totally gets it. There are kids every rink you go to, every bus you get off of. There's number 98 Bedard sweaters, and he sees it out of the corner of his eye, and he signs them all the time, and he always does the right thing. So he's special, whether it's off the ice or obviously on the ice.
Can't wait to see him on a national stage, whether it's at the World Championship, at the Four Nations next year, or at the Olympics. It's going to be so much fun. This was a lot of fun, Panger. Thank you so much for doing this, and enjoy the stretch drive into the playoffs here.
Thank you very much, Nick. I appreciate that. Huts, keep up the great work, buddy. Thunder Bay loves you, man. Thunder Bay, Ontario.
Yeah. Thanks, Panger.
See you, Panger.
See you, buddy. See ya.
Darren Pang, one of the best, NBC Sports Chicago, obviously TNT, and always breaking it down, always having fun. I'm going to call you like the junior Darren Pang, man. Panger just brings so much wealth of experience and knowledge to the game, and he has fun doing it. That's what I love about him.
Yeah, like I touched on earlier, he's so good for hockey, and he's just a great guy all around, right? He talks about the way Connor Bedard carries himself, but he carries himself as well, right? And he's so good, and he knows his stuff. He's knowledgeable, and for me, what I love is he promotes the game, and he does it the right way. So obviously he's meant a lot to me, and you can see even just jumping on here and his attitude and the way he carries himself. It's he's a guy you could see every day, right? If you're having a bad day, just call Darren Pang. He's going to make you feel a lot better, Nicky.
Holy jumping, that's for sure. The only thing sweeter than the taste of victory, starting your day off with the new Cinnabon pull-apart from Wendy's. That said, there's no reason you can't have both now that Wendy's and Daily Face-Off Fantasy are giving you a chance to win weekly prizes all season long. And hey, even if you make a few wrong picks, at least you know heading to Wendy's right now for a $5 Cinnabon pull-apart and a small coffee would be a great choice. Sign up for Daily Face-Off today, sponsored by Wendy's and the Wendy's app. So the second of three meetings, I can't even say it and put it out of my mouth, but 16 days. So that's a season series right there. Last one coming up on Thursday at Scotiabank Arena. The last meeting, March 26th, 6-3 win for the Devils in Toronto. And the expectation here, no confirmation just yet, but Joseph Woll expected to go since his injury, 3-5-0, 3.15, 8.87. Sneaky big game, right? There's only a few starts left down the stretch here for Joseph Woll.
Yeah, it's a big game for him too, and you want to get him reps, right? He's going to start tonight. I know it's not announced yet, but he has to play. He hasn't played that poorly to, not get this start. It's just the fact Samsonov has played so well on the other side of it. So again, I know everyone is pro Samsonov. I know it's his crease, and he's done everything to have that. But at the same time, you want Joseph Woll to be ready to rock because you're an injury away. You're a few bad games away from him being your starter and getting in the crease. So you got to make sure he's getting reps in and getting play and maybe a little bit of break, a little more time off because he did come off a pretty bad ankle injury, which trust me, ankles and goaltending do not fit well together. So be interesting to see what happens tonight because that Jersey team is hungry and they've been playing well since the addition of Jake Allen.
You talk about New Jersey, some breaking news here. Jack Hughes not in the lineup for this game with an upper body injury. That's been my speculation for like 3 months now. This guy's nowhere close to healthy. There's a reason why they put him on the wing. And lo and behold, the Devils are on the outside looking in. They're not going to make the playoffs. And I would not be shocked at all. Just me speculating. We've seen the last of Jack Hughes this season, but won't play tonight against the Maple Leafs. So maybe a bit of a break, but you can't take your foot off the pedal, especially when you're playing a team like that where they're done. A lot of these guys playing for new contracts and stuff like that. Jake Allen's been a great story. He was fantastic last time out. And, of course, Travis Green, the former Maple Leaf, coaching for his job to get a full-time look as the head coach of this Devils team. So it's always tough on the back-to-back. The record, by the way, for the Maple Leafs in the back end of the back-to-back, they're 6-5-0 through 11 games. This will be game number 12. So looking forward to this one. But I agree with you. I think it's a sneaky big one for Joseph Woll. He's not going to start the first game. I think it's a foregone conclusion. It's going to be Ilya Samsonov, but I want both guys ready and playing their best hockey when it matters.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes we make it such a competition, like who has to be better than the other guy when it doesn't need to be. You just want good goaltending by committee. And I think that's something that's super important in sports and team alone. It's easy to want your guy to be good and want who you're pulling for to outperform the other guy, but everybody wins when the team wins, right? And especially you'll look at that in years past, teams that win cups, they bring in winners. They want better players, and guys that get moved out get better contracts. So like winning helps the group in general, right? That was something that was very open and promoted when we would get into playoffs or you're trying to build a team, is like, if we win, we all win together because everyone's going to move on to greener pastures and things are going to be better, right? So that's something that's important this time of year as well, to make sure everybody is on board and everyone's buying into what they need to buy into, right? Where if you get scratched from the lineup or you're not playing, find a way to be positive and spin it in the right light, because what's good for the team is good for you.
Just saw too, Arbor Jacki, of course, with Montreal. We saw the Habs over the weekend. He didn't play in that game. Will undergo season-ending surgery to his left shoulder tomorrow, so he's expected to be ready for next season. That's why you didn't see him in the lineup against Montreal against Toronto on Saturday, and that's why Ryan Reeves pretty much bullied the Montreal Canadiens and pumped the shit out of Michael Pezzetta. So that's the latest on that front. So no Jack Hughes in this game for the New Jersey Devils as the Leafs visit Newark for the one and only time this season. The Betano wrap-up is presented by Betano.ca. The game starts now, 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betano is the official partner of Copa America 2024, taking the beautiful game to new heights in the Americas. Join Betano in their journey of passion, unity, and unforgettable football moments. I got to go back to the Auston Matthews anytime goal. I think he has, I don't have the notes in front of me. Actually, I do. I crunched the numbers. Matthews has 15 goals in 16 career games against the Devils. So that's my play. Auston Matthews anytime gets closer to 70 tonight.
Yeah, I like that too, especially right now with he's feeling it right now. The boys are buzzing, especially coming off a big win last night. I feel like you're already in game mode. But for me, honestly, I like the Canadians being the spoilers here against the Flyers here. I think that's just going to take them down. Montembeault didn't play well last game against the Leafs. I think he bounces back tonight. And the other game I love is the Wings Cap games. I think the Wings take it to the Caps, and I think they ran out of steam here.
Three-way. I'm going to look at the three-way in that game. Let's get a tie. Let's get Pittsburgh out of the equation, man. I love that. You see the videos, by the way, to wrap. I thought it was weird last night. There wasn't really an ISO cam on Kyle Dubas. Maybe he's like, if you film me, like, I'll sue your ass or something like that. But, like, he just nothing. Absolutely nothing last night. And then we see the reaction shot to Jake McCabe's OT winner and see you later, Kyle Dubas and Jason Spezza. I thought that was a fitting end and finish to that game last night and the season series too.
I thought it was great that they didn't show him till just at the end, right? It was just a nice little cherry on top, right? Just showing him at the end after the knife's been stuck in and McCabe went 5-hole to win it. So I loved it, Nick, because I hate seeing it nonstop. It would have been like the Taylor Swift cam with Kyle Dubas.
Yeah, they've done that before. It's probably overplayed. They did that the first time out. In fact, I think all three outings this season, they didn't overplay it for some reason. I thought that was a low-hanging fruit in terms of a narrative and a storyline. But nevertheless, the Leafs best the Pittsburgh Penguins in the season series, 2-1. They get the 3-2 victory against Pittsburgh on Monday night. And we look forward to this one in Jersey against the Devils on Tuesday night. Hutz, excellent job. I believe you're back in the mix on Friday, right?
Yeah, you got me working pretty much all week, buddy. This is like full-time hours here for me. So I appreciate that, my man.
Yeah. Jay Rosel's face is on a milk carton this week. So we look forward. Rosie's going to be back in the mix. For those of you asking, I see you in the chat. Be back on Thursday as we get closer to the playoffs. He'll be more frequently in the mix as well, just doing some things behind the scenes. So looking forward to that. Anthony Stewart will be back for tomorrow's show. David Amber of Sportsnet's going to drop by. We're going to break down this Leafs-Devils game. Also look ahead of the game on Thursday. Talk some Matthews. Talk about the postseason. Talk about the playoff format. Lots coming that way. So thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401 Leafs Morning Take. Wherever you find your podcast, Thank you to producer Vic. For Carter Hutton, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Wednesday. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosa. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.